CM Punk won't be back in AEW. Plus, some scrapped AEW plans for CM Punk have been revealed, and a released WWE Star could be back in WWE soon. It's all in the wrestling news right now. That's right, more about CM Punk and the brawlout fallout from All Out. The Wrestling Observer adding some more detail to this. You're going to see, and somebody asked me this, and they said, why is it suddenly now everybody's talking about it? I believe there were NDAs that were signed after the brawl as the investigation was ongoing, and now since the investigation seems to be wrapping up, you're going to see a few people talking. Only a few involved in the incident will actually be able to talk. We'll get to that in a moment. From the Observer today, a few names were mentioned, with Chris Jericho being the name mentioned most, but many, if not most of the key top names were saying in AEW that they wouldn't work with CM Punk again. One top star noting Punk won't be back. His value on screen isn't 1% worth the hassle and black cloud that he causes backstage. Another top star, again according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, noted that the team has decided that he is out, and regardless of some being willing to work with him, the collective decided that he was voted off the island. Metaphorically speaking, would be weird if AEW was an actual island, a bit like that program Survivor.
Yes.
Who sang Eye of the Tiger. This adds to further discussion about the All Out investigation. Which I think in the weeks to come we'll get a little bit more clarity on. But the vibe from and we all have different feelings on different news sites and reports and stuff like that. The Wrestling Observer, Fightful, Wrestling Inc. Who else have we heard from? PW Insider has some bits from there as well, I do believe. Multiple outlets that have reported this. The general thread seems to be, regardless of who started what and who did what and whether a door was kicked, whether a dog was hurt, the general consensus is that CM Punk is done in wrestling. It feels that way, doesn't it?
It certainly does, with everything coming out. And I think the big thing as well that Meltzer notes here too is sort of the conversation that a lot of us have had, like, is it really worth it? Is it worth for AEW, his value on screen, as Meltzer says here, isn't 1% worth the hassle and black cloud that he causes backstage? And I think that's the main thing, is that if it is a detriment to the rest of your locker room, if it really pulls everything down, it's just, personally, it just doesn't seem worth it.
In terms of what we have seen from it, obviously we saw the press conference.
Yeah.
And CM Punk injured, tired, bloody at the end of his tether, pulling up stuff about Scott Colton, talking about the EVPs, working with effing children, those comments about Hangman Page based on a promo, and a slight comment that he'd be made many weeks before is kind of what we are looking at. And the general vibe has been it was in the news video this morning, another report coming out that says that Chris Jericho referred to CM Punk as a cancer in the locker room, and this is a real far cry from I think we got so wrapped up in the idea of CM Punk returning and the vindication of CM Punk after the way his WWE run ended.
Yeah,
like I think maybe we lost sight of something of a bigger story. Maybe we did. But certainly, as I say, a lot of the reports that we're getting from multiple outlets and multiple sources kind of comes back to this idea that we're probably not going to see CM Punk in an in-ring capacity again, in one way or another. Now, in terms of the incident that took place at All Out, and one day, Andrew, I do foresee a day on the horizon where we sit down and do a wrestling video and we don't talk about a press conference at the end of an AEW show.
I don't believe it.
I see that day. I see that halcyon day on the horizon. But who can talk about it? Well, Dave Meltzer goes on to say there's only one person who was involved in that whole scenario who can legally talk about it, and that is the wife of Ace Steel, Lucy Guy. Lucy Guy, says Dave, has not talked publicly, but all the people who saw what happened, she's the only one who can publicly at this point give her version of the story. Several others have said they hope to at some point to be able to give their side of the story, but for now, with the investigation completed, none are allowed to publicly or privately talk about anything related to the incident, NDAs, and all of that stuff. Whether or not Lucy will talk is another thing, but it's an interesting little aside.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult for sort of any side to talk about it, because I think, there's people in one camp and there's people in another camp. And if someone does talk about it, I assume they'll have, their supporters and also the people that will jump on them as well for the comments they make. So again, it's going to be whoever does speak about it first and whoever does manage to let everybody in on what actually happened. It's going to be difficult. I think a lot of people are going to take things with a grain of salt from whichever side they hear it from. So will we ever get the true, the factual true thing? Who knows?
You'll have made your mind up as well already watching this. You'll know whether or not, you'll have an idea as to who you believe was in the right with it. CM Punk, he was vindicated, in your eyes, CM Punk may very well, everybody deserved what they got and all this. And you may think, no, CM Punk is indeed all these bad things they're saying. You'll have made your mind up in terms of how it fits with you. Let's talk about what could have been, because the biggest tragedy in all of this, providing that Larry the Dog wasn't hurt, fingers crossed. The biggest tragedy in all of this is the amount of money left on the table with CM Punk never wrestling again. Dave Meltzer gives us a little bit of an idea of some of those potential plans for CM Punk. They're not gonna be shock horrors, but it's interesting to hear them.
Yes, so Mel's saying Danielson and Punk were back, and then Omega came back, and things did not jump back up immediately. But for Punk and Omega, they barely got their feet wet.
So could have done a little run back of that.
Yes, of course. Yeah. So the Observer also notes the hope was to revive Punk versus MJF and have the classic promo battles, plus all the great undercard action. I don't think things would have been back to September 2021, no matter what. But they also didn't have to be at that level to thrive as a company going forward.
Yes, they didn't need to blow September 2021 out of the water.
Of course.
I think to have Punk and MJF rolling it back again for the title on the line, more great promos that build on that sort of second story arc with them would have been amazing.
Absolutely amazing. And it's such a shame that we won't get that now. We won't get that.
All the optics points was never getting that.
Exactly. And that is such a shame, especially with how hot MJF is now too. Like him and Punk, two of the biggest stars in AEW and the people that the crowd were behind the most in that company. And now with the level that MJF is at, him and Punk together, oh my God, as you said, with the title on the line, that would have been phenomenal. Maybe even a part of wrestling history. Who knows now? Who knows?
As we say, the big story being that it looks as if CM Punk will never wrestle again. But you know who the last person was that we said that about? CM Punk.
Very true.
Just putting that out there. Let's talk a bit about JR. On Grilling JR, he revealed, in case it wasn't massively obvious, that he's made a full-time move to Rampage. He says, we're trying real hard to make that 1 hour show improve and make it better. I like working with Excalibur and Shivani. I think that's our best group, at least for me, because I'm working. I miss being on Dynamite, but I'm glad Tony put me on Rampage because I want to help build that brand. That was the concept. Put JR on Friday nights. Maybe viewers will tune in and out for old time's sake, or whatever the reason may be. It's an hour show. That's how I started my career. Looks like that's how I'm going to end it, doing hour shows. If that's the case, that's fine with me. I've given JR a fair bit of grief since he joined Dynamite.
Yes.
I think an hour show for Rampage, I think he's been much better.
I agree.
I feel like it's a focused hour that he can really get his teeth into. I feel much better about JR doing an hour.
Yeah, we've spoken about this before, and it seems like he has a lot more energy as well. With it just being an hour show, he can just come in, get all his energy out. He doesn't have to draw it out throughout a 2 hour show.
Yeah.
Another thing as well, he's talking a lot recently about Rampage and wanting it to feel like something special. And I think that's a really good idea, Maybe people tune in for old time's sake because it's JR and they come to see what's going on. Like, it feels like JR is very much of the mindset of, okay, Rampage actually needs to feel like something other than kind of just this 1 hour show that people might not tune in for.
It feels like Dynamite overflow.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like you're pouring a cup of tea and you've poured for too long. And you're getting whatever's in the saucer on Rampage. And Rampage deserves to be more than that.
Exactly.
And it should be more than that.
And we've had little glimpses of it being more than that sometimes as well. We've had really good matches on there. Omega and Christian. Really good match. Lots of stuff. But I think it's finally time to start actually hitting the nail on the head with it and being a bit more focused with what Rampage can be.
And is it finally time for a former WWE star to come back Andrew?
Perhaps PW Insider are reporting that Chelsea Green has wrapped up her time with Impact Wrestling, filming a vignette that writes her off completely. The plan from here is reportedly to return to WWE. Green was released from her WWE deal in 2021, if you recall, after several months being on the shelf due to an injury. We remember this. She just turned up on SmackDown, didn't she? And then she was written off with an injury.
She was meant to win that 4-way match,
Yeah.
and they ended up having to rejig the finish on the fly because she got hurt.
Yes, and previously Chelsea had garnered some high praise for her work in NXT, but was victim of WWE's sweeping budget cuts, as we all recall, in 2020 and 2021. Now, Green has seemingly confirmed her Impact departure with the tweet, left you all vexed, VXT, from the beginning.
Yeah, so it looks as if Vexed is done, and it looks as if Chelsea Green might be heading back. I mean, you could have had Ziana Peraza as well and brought Vexed over. Imagine that in the women's tag division.
That would have been very, very good. That would have. That's the thing as well. I know things look very good to start with when we brought back Io Sky and Dakota Kai, and it's still kind of dwindling in that area at the moment, isn't it? So
yeah, we need
like that
more
would have been
teams.
good.
Yeah, we need. I think they'd have been brilliant as a team. But thoughts on Chelsea Green coming back?
Excited again. She barely got to show anything of what she could do on SmackDown after she was in the match and then she got injured. It seemed like there was a lot of stock in her as well. People backstage seemed to have a lot of stock in her. They were going to change her name to Victorious. Do you remember that?
Oh.
And she was like I think from what I read, she was pretty up for that as well. I don't think she'll be called Victorious now.
No.
But I think this is a really good thing, and just another person to add to the women's roster and just shake things up a bit, because I feel like it needs a bit of a shake up at the moment. I don't know what it is. Something that just feels a bit meh at the moment. For me.
A bit of it, what?
A bit meh. So I think get Chelsea Green in there.
Do you feel that the WWE's women's roster is also a little bit meh? Let us know in the comments below using the word meh. And we'll have... I like that. I'm going to find an excuse to use that in conversation.
Like, to be clear, I think the women's wrestlers on the roster are phenomenal. I just think some of the storylines at the moment are a bit.
We'll have more wrestling news throughout the day at cultaholic.bear. Kiss.
Love you, babe.